We are streaming. All right, are we good to go? Craig is not coming today.
No.
I guess.
Hi, how is yours?
So, welcome to the
Craig
Yang
is
Gang
having
round
audio
table.
problems.
It is 2:16. There he is.
Now recording.
2:16.
Hey, Greg, nice to join you.
Sunday,
Us.
January 17th, 2021. We have Giselle Huff here as our special guest. We're a basic income advocacy podcast, and so it's very good to have you. How are you doing? Would you like to just talk about what you've been working on?
Well, this is, I don't know how to answer that question. I mean, this is so surreal, this whole year, the year of 2020, that it's just, I just move along, I don't know if it's Tuesday or Friday or the weekend or whatever, I get up at 6:30 in the morning, I go to sleep at 11, I walk for an hour every day. That's it. And in the meantime, I'm trying to change the world. So it's kind of interesting in a way. We never had an opportunity like that, where you have so many hours to fill and you're so passionate about a cause. It really is an exciting moment for me.
Giselle, you are the founder or the person making the Fund for Humanity happen, the Gerald Huff Fund for Humanity. Is that correct?
Right. That's correct. Yes. So my late son, Gerald, was a very passionate proponent of UBI. And because he was with Tesla, he was the principal software engineer on the team that created the Model 3. And it was very clear to him that technological unemployment was going to happen in those. 2 years ago, it was more of a long-term thing, but with the pandemic, it's completely, everything got accelerated and exacerbated. So he was very, up until 2008, I was a libertarian. In fact, I ran for Congress in 1998 in Marin and Sonoma County, just across the bridge from San Francisco, where I had retired. I couldn't stand retirement, so I decided to run for Congress instead. And I ran as a Republican because a libertarian, I was closer to the Republican, policy ideas than I was to the Democratic ones. So until 2008, that was my position. Self-made woman, the epitome of the American dream. Came here in 1947 with my mother, $400 to our name, didn't speak English, American dream. In 2008, when the economy collapsed, it became clear to me like an epiphany that you couldn't pull yourself up by your bootstraps. In fact, interesting as an aside, the expression "pulling yourself up by your bootstraps," its origin was to exemplify impossibility. It was meant to point out that you couldn't do it. Well, think about it. How can you pull yourself up by your bootstraps? So anyway, the meaning changed. But for me, it was clear that the system was so broken that what I lived through, my love of country and the opportunities that I was given from my, really, really low start, were no longer possible, except for the very rich. They were not available to people like me who come to to this country, or even children of people who've been in this country for a long time. The middle class is falling apart, and through no fault of their own. The image in my mind, the thing that really got me was the idea of a guy who's 54 years old. I made him up. 54 years old, making $75,000 a year somewhere in a suburban area around, around a major city, where he had a job that was management, shuffling papers, and he gets fired. or he loses his job because of the crash, that's the end of his life. For 20, since he's 22 years old, he's been doing everything right. And then the system just absolutely spits him out. So, first he loses his house, then he loses his car, and then, he's a greeter at Walmart. It blew my mind. So Gerald convinced me to, they didn't convince me, but we were very involved. We both supported Andrew at the very beginning of his campaign. In fact, Gerald wrote a book, Crisis 2038, which is a techno thriller that describes what will happen if we don't do the right thing now. If we don't implement UBI and we don't understand how to manage technology. If we don't make it so that everybody benefits from technology. So I helped him, the family, we were all helping him write the book. It's a very complicated process. It took quite a long time because he had a full-time day job. But all through that time, we talked about this. We were I was really involved with him on this. And in November of 2018, he died of pancreatic cancer. He was 54 years old, and he was diagnosed 7 weeks before. So it was a 7.
My uncle also passed away from
It's a killer. It's a killer, but it's also so fast. So, yeah. So, when that happened, it was, you can imagine, completely devastating. He was my son, but he was also my intellectual soulmate, independently of the fact that we loved each other as a family. We had a bond that I'll never be able to replicate. Although getting involved with people in this space, occasionally I get like Scott Sentence and I. Scott came to a celebration of life in December of 2018. And Scott is now serving on the board of the Fund for Humanity. He's also the editor of the Basic Income Today, which is the news site that I support, that I created and support. So when I looked at what I was going to do with the rest of my life with this hole in it, in February of 2019, I decided to found the Fund for Humanity. And I was able to raise some funds. I invited some of my own, but also other family members and a very good friend. And I looked around and thought, I looked at the field. I already was quite well acquainted with the field on the academic sort of intellectual level. But I looked around and I thought, what isn't anybody not doing? It was, what are people doing and what is missing? And what I realized was that there were a tremendous amount of academic activity that had been ongoing for 25 or 30 years, but pretty much, the angels dancing on the head of a pin. Conferences that drew 100 people, where people exchanged papers and nitpicked about, this little piece of UBI or that little piece of UBI. Some strong organizations like Economic Security Project, who were, doing work in UBI very effectively, but no one was selling the idea. No one was doing branding or marketing. And if you want to make change happen, you have, in this case especially, you have to accomplish a mind shift among public opinion. And how are you going to do that if you don't deliberately do that? Just like when you build a movement, which is what I'm trying to help make happen. In order to build a movement, you have to invest in infrastructure. It doesn't just happen. I mean,
the fact that we are the poor people that need to get this message out, for people who need universal basic income, right? We don't have the funds to necessarily like get the word out, and that's probably been a big issue within it. So we have to hope that people who have money are actually on board, and that's who you have to convince. And that's been quite the journey, if you will.
The thing that's so disturbing, is that this idea of basic income is seen as like it's being perceived by society as like this new idea, when in actuality it's been around for a while. Other countries are doing it, and the point behind is this: okay, we have all these resources at our disposal, so there aren't really any excuses. Where you have various countries throughout the world, some maybe have more resources, others have very little, and yet they manage to still organize, to still get stuff done, to still be able to help their people and stuff. So why can't we? It's like and the biggest issue is that, the money and the people aren't together, like Angie Yang has reiterated. And it's like, if we have like A, B, and C, why can't we use them? Why are we having these issues on the ground? This should be second nature for us. So it's like this is embarrassing. It should be the case. We shouldn't be having this discussion. It should be already happening right now. You know?
Well, I'm reading a book called the Politics Industry, and I've just read the first half, which explains exactly why we are here, and it's mostly because all of our institutions are incapable. They're not made to deliver what we need. I mean, Congress, our education system, our health system.
Yeah.
None of our systems are capable.
100%. You know why that is? It's because the people who create the problems are the ones who want to perpetuate those problems because they're the ones profiting from it.
Absolutely. That they write the rules.
Yeah.
So, I mean, one of the points they make is the duopoly, that's their thing. The Democrats, and the book is about the duopoly. And they compare it to, corporations, who also want to capture the market and all of the things that happen in, antitrust laws. The corporations, the corporate world is regulated. They have an outsized force, not as well as it could be, but at least there's something. You can, sue Microsoft. Right? The government has put a stop to some of those things, but the government has no regulatory agency to control it except the vote. But they control the rules of the vote. So guess what? The vote doesn't get you there because, it's like...
They also control the media, too. The Yang media blackout. Well, even if we do try, we're getting blocked at, a good hub.
Yeah.
Stupid.
Well, and I think that what's also happened, even though it's been 100 years since women have gained the vote, we've gained enfranchisement, right? But the kind of shift that we expected to see in the way politics ran as a result of that never really panned out. And so the question becomes, how are we being disenfranchised in our political system? And if we're not being represented, then how can we make the change happen so that we do get the representation? Otherwise, we're all just like DC, taxed but not represented.
And the bread and circus, all this, you say what you want about Trump, but he should not be the focus of what's happening right now. And all of this partisanship is sucking all the oxygen out of the room, because the minute we want to talk about something important, something like the Capitol riots happens, and it just shifts all the attention away from all these underlying issues.
We had Ossoff and Warnock win, right? And that got totally buried in the media with the Capitol being attacked, if you will, and it's just it's so crazy. It's so crazy. But I think we also need to have grassroots, crowd-funded activists, because that's kind of what politics should be. but isn't, right? Not quite. We do need them, but we don't trust them yet. So we have to have like an alternative that's better and more effective. And then we can actually get stuff done, because the people who have the energy and passion can launch it, right? But they don't want to deal with the politics of politics. But we are getting people to learn how to do that stuff. We are teaching them outside of the system so that they could just step into it when it's time. And they'll have the resources, they'll have the connections, they'll have the followers. And I think it's the followers that necessarily makes that easier. But if we don't even have technology to get on a laptop, good luck.
Let me just say this. Let me just say this quickly. If the government did their job and like they weren't messing around or whatever, and we got these sort of things done, Donald Trump wouldn't have become president in the first place. Just saying, it's cause and effect. It's like he didn't just come out of the blue. It's like because we know how much of a buffoon and like narcissist he is, you know. And even though he's a reality TV star, it's like if the government was strong, if the government like they didn't waste the people's time and stuff, and we didn't have all these problems or whatever, he wouldn't have gotten in.
But you see, the whole premise of the two-party system is that since compromise became a dirty word, which is decades, it didn't just happen this time around. The whole premise is to keep the other guys from winning. So you don't want to give them credit for anything. All you want to do is sabotage whatever they're doing, so that they don't get credit, so that they can get elected again. And people get more and more frustrated. So we go
at the expense of us. Exactly, at the expense of all of us.
Of course.
There's this vicious...
We have nothing to do with this. They don't take us into account. They only take their extremes into account because they're the ones who vote in the primaries. One of the things about the book is they believe that we have to have open primaries. That if we get open primaries, then you can't do that, because in an open primary, like we have in California, we get more moderate people because they have to win everybody, right? They have to win people all over the state, not just the extreme left. You know what percentage of people vote in primaries? It's like breathtaking. Something like 20% of people vote in primaries. So when you go to, and 50% of people vote in regular elections, and probably less in, less important ones like local ones. But when you get to the point where you're actually, as a non-involved person, but a serious voter, you're given a choice between two people for the presidency, or for the governorship, or for anything. That is because 20% of the people chose the two people.
I want to point out something. Okay, so you might not have seen it, but Tiger King was like quite the rage at some point. And essentially, for anybody who hasn't seen it, it's not everybody's cup of tea, but it was two narcissistic owners of tiger facilities and big cats and whatnot. And essentially, Carol Baskins was accused of murdering her husband, while Joe Exotic, the other guy, was like, she murdered, he's the accuser, right? And as he's feuding with her, they start spending all their money on all these lawsuits. They start doing really shady stuff, and they're just attacking each other. But you know who's actually suffering? Their tigers. Their tigers were not being able to eat. Their tigers were getting aggressive because they were being ignored. And we're the tigers, guys. We have to figure something out, because our owners are not doing the things they need to do, and they're being like super petty, and we are the ones suffering, and it's not cool.
Right. Well, what it is it's just this vicious ping pong match. They're just lobbing this ball back and forth. It's, well, now Republicans are in control, so we're going to do all this contraction because all of these things, and there's all this waste and yada, yada, yada. And we got to tighten up the ship and make sure that everything's, stern. And then the Democrats get in charge, and they're like, well, those, none of that worked. You know, what really is happening, the Republicans are breaking the government when they're in charge, right? And then they say, well, you can't let the Democrats run anything because every time that they run something, we have to come back and fix it. When they're the ones that's causing that, like, it's, oh.
Well, I know that
Vicious
the politics right now it's very easy to get caught up in the partisanship. But I think the interesting thing is that despite Andrew Yang's run for presidency, bringing the cash stimulus into very popular numbers, people still do not actually know about the universal basic income. And even though he made that his primary policy, it seems that every day I meet people who ask me, what is a UBI? If I start talking about UBI, we have people who drop into our Twitch stream or into our YouTube stream, and they want to know, what are you talking about? What is this UBI thing? Why do you have that in your tags for your the interests that you have? And so I think that it's really interesting that Giselle's organization is about educating people specifically about the universal basic income. And there's been a recent media push in order to get this information out again, along with a very professionally produced video blitz. Can you tell us more about your video and what you're hoping to accomplish?
So the video is a pro bono thing. I would never be able to afford, to do such a thing. And interestingly enough, the people involved who don't want any credit or any mention, when they began to work on this, they knew nothing about UBI, right? I mean, they were just professionals. They sell products, right? That's what they do. So I had to sort of explain to them, and I started working with them in September of 2019. So it took all this time to get all of this put together. And what they found as they went along, and what I find as I'm doing my work, professionals, people who get paid for the work they do, begin to give me pro bono time and energy because they get pulled in to the cause. I can't tell you how much money, I've saved, how much pro bono volunteer, but not from people who are proponents of UBI, not the Yang Gang. I'm talking about people who provide services. I mean, one of the things that happened at one point, this agency put out an RFP among their own colleagues to volunteer to work on the video. And they do that on a regular basis for, pro bono sort of causes. They usually get one response, maybe one response. Sometimes nobody picks up on it. They got 6. They were floored. They got 6 responses from 2 of them from out of the country. For, this is people who work in the agency volunteering to give their time to move something forward that they just found out about.
I have similar experiences in my life. So a little bit about me. I'm a nomadic activist. I've been traveling the country for 2 years. I've been actively helping on the Yang campaign messaging for about a year now. And because of the work I do and the fact that I live very minimally off of money, I've had to get creative. So I need to be kind of my own little spectacle to get people to look at me. But the moment they meet me, they're like dazzled and they're like, how can I help? And then I'm part of this group, right? I'm like, well, if you want to be onboarded, I have this person who can assign some homework. What kind of passion do you have? What kind of thing brings you joy? Let's activate that. And then they're just like sold. And they might have just heard about universal basic income. I just talked to this guy who's a Trump supporter, very avid still, even after what happened, Trump supporter. And I was like, whoa, tell me more. What did Trump do for you? Why are you so into him? Like, tell me more. They work as a petroleum engineer, And I was like, well, that's interesting. So obviously he's still getting money. Okay, that's probably why he's happy. But apparently a fire broke out and killed some of their friends, and it was really devastating. But they ended up getting buco bucks, and they felt very empowered by Trump because of like how he responded. And I was like, well, it sounds like there was positive impact in your life, but like, at what cost? And one of the things I try to do is I poke around looking for clean energy. I go online, I'm looking at all these other alternatives and stuff. But I was like, there's this giant movement you've never heard of, and it's just making massive impacts and change. And he's like, oh, you're a Trump supporter too? And I was like, no, actually, let me really tell you about the movement you've never heard of. And he was just kind of floored a little bit. And I was just telling him about all the little adventures I have. And he's like the reaction was so authentic of just wanting to like learn more, get to know me more. But if we can help raise awareness just to some random Trump supporter who happened to reach out to me, then like, you know, that gets another opportunity, one, outside of our echo chamber, two, a potential onboarder. And if they're still earning money, I mean, I don't try to go ask for money. If people offer me money, I will take it. And I do open asks, but direct asks I try not to do, because like, unless I really need it. Like my truck broke down while I was trying to like help on the Georgia Senate, from like Texas to Georgia, and I did ask for a lot of help, and people from all over the world were donating to get my little truck fixed because of like the activism work I'm doing. And I'm like, that's wonderful. But then other people start learning how to help too. And so to help me send money, they might have to create like Venmo or PayPal if they haven't already, and they get practice doing that as well. So it almost helps other activists earn the money they need on their Patreons or through their Venmo, simply because they've been helping me. And I think that's kind of cute. It's a great way to onboard new people. And then I ask random strangers sometimes I meet while traveling to come on our podcast. And I'm like, hey, you've been wrongfully jailed. Do you want to have a chance to talk about it on my podcast? Oh, yeah. But like, they're not normal people we would normally want to have if you were like a media person, which is what the news should be anyway. We should be getting voices out for these people. They should, just because they've had bad decisions in their lives, or, you know, questionable at least.
Giselle has gotten a lot of help in order to produce this video that she wouldn't have been able to afford to pay for, but it becomes something that everybody wants to get involved in as soon as they understand a little bit about UBI.
That's the beauty of it. That's the view. Like, we try to make this so non-partisan and so non-politically charged that's why Yang got the most amount of people who previously voted for Trump to come on his thing. Because the Democrats' message back in, if you remember, in 2016, I hardly heard anything about economics. All I was hearing is like, oh, don't be racist, don't be nasty to one another, and Trump is just mean and nasty. But it's like, yeah, but can't you see that the factories are falling apart? And they're like, oh, well, what are you going to do? Just don't be racist. You can't, that's not a winning message.
Yeah, that's not a winning argument. No.
So yeah, and India is African American. So,
I was going to say that Larry probably has a lot of experience with harnessing this type of energy because you ran a super PAC for a while that was providing resources to people who wanted to give energy.
Yeah, we had a lot of different people offer ideas, people who just came to us and were like, we have an idea. And we, again, the Humanity Forward Fund was a different kind of super PAC because we consciously asked our supporters and people who believed in UBI and Andrew Yang to come up with ideas. And if we could vet the idea and go through the process of seeing if we could effectively move that idea forward, we then acted on it. So a lot of our best ideas, including Yang Week and Yang Month, were from just volunteers and committed supporters. It wasn't like the small group of us just came up with it ourselves. It was really due to the community. So actually, I wanted to ask Giselle a question about those who volunteered and sort of responded to the RFP. were you able to sort of talk with them and see why they were so interested in the first place? Because they all probably started from a specific place of what they knew about UBI or what they didn't know about UBI. So is there anything you can tell us about what they shared, about why they jumped on the proposal so quickly and so forcefully?
No, unfortunately, I didn't have any access to those people.
Okay.
The team that I worked with was, I think that these are very smart people, very successful people in life. They have good jobs and they're very creative. They pretty much got it from the get-go. I mean, they didn't, they were convinced intellectually, and they understood the need for a mind shift. They understood the fundamental meaning of UBI. Just in the course of the conversations what they were trying to elicit from me. I'm talking about the team now, not the RFP responders, with whom I had several conversations. I mean, I had to explain to them what it was we were selling, and so, I mean, obviously, they're selling T-shirts, and I mean, they're selling products, and they have to listen to their clients about what the product is. And so they're well versed in that art. I mean, they know how to do that. But they got it almost right away. So, if you speak to an audience, those are not the people we have to talk to.
Giselle, did you actually provide them with the big experience toolkit? Because I always found that to be a very wonderful tool. Did you actually give them any things like that? No, they did the discovery.
No content. No content.
Oh,
no content.
What was their arc? What was their arc of learning?
I'm sorry.
Sorry. What was their arc of learning? Like, what was? I don't know if you can go into it about what they used as the development tool for, or what their experience was from doing the research to figuring out what the message they felt was best resonant, because there's so many messages that speak to the power of UBI and its importance. And I'm curious how they came to this conclusion in the ad.
So the process started with, the team leaders knowing the first meeting we had was, what is the point of this? What's the result of this? And the result we decided was some kind of a petition or some kind of an ongoing thing where people could express their response to this, in a meaningful way in a political system, but with keeping politics out of it, partisan politics. So
Giselle,
they were not that, they didn't come to this with knowledge. They probably knew about UBI because they're savvy enough people that were following the Yanks campaign, or they heard about it, or they read about it. So it wasn't an entirely unknown thing to them. They knew, so the way they approached it, which is really part of their skill set, they approached it by testing it out. We had, we did screen of different words and different ideas, and we did this together. I picked, or we discussed, but eventually at the end, before they actually started working on the product, they had a survey organization, pro bono, again, no cost, analyze this with focus groups. They identified various cohorts that would be most likely to respond to this, and they build a message around that. Then when they tested the video, again pro bono, they had the biggest, every time we talked, they kept on being surprised at the responses they got. Okay? I mean, these are professional people who are constantly doing this 24/7, the whole year. That's their job, year after year, and they tested the video out, and 65% of people who viewed the video said that they would do something.
pretty good.
You mean actually action?
To go further, to take an action.
That's great. Just I wanted to.
They have never experienced that before. So I'm saying, I'm just telling you that this is an idea whose time has come. I mean, this is such a cliche, but it is true because any reasonable person with any semblance of empathy or understanding of what it means to live in a society. I mean, I live in San Francisco downtown. Okay. I pay a lot of taxes, property taxes. San Francisco is a fabulous city. It's beautiful. The weather is fantastic. We had all these great restaurants. I mean, it's a great opera, everything. I mean, it's a wonderful place to live. For the last 2 or 3 years, when I step out of my condo and I walk to the Embarcadero, I'm tripping over homeless people. So, quality of life, the more I pay in taxes, the more my quality of life decreases. That's the conundrum that we find ourselves in.
That's ridiculous. Yeah. Giselle, I wanted to ask, because you said you came from a kind of a libertarian mindset before, where maybe it was like, I hear a lot of libertarians say like taxation is theft and, the government is always doing everything wrong. But then there was probably a shift in your thinking when you saw the technological unemployment. I'm just thinking in your Republican and libertarian circles, once the idea of UBI came to you, when you talked to the friends that you had, like as a libertarian, were they open to it, or were they still like, no, taxation is theft, we can't do this, the government can't do anything right? Like, how was that for you?
It's a kind of a split. The true libertarians, the more intellectual ones, who are very intent on freedom and see government as infringing on freedom. I mean, it's not that they're just against government. There's two different kinds of sets of people that I was dealing with. On one hand, in my job, I dealt with a lot of think tanks that were, at the beginning of my career, we were pro-school choice. We wanted school choice. So all over the states, there's an organization called the State Policy Network. That's a network of think tanks that are libertarian. I mean, they don't do social issues, but they do all the taxation and all of that, small government, free markets, all of that stuff. And I was so involved with them that I actually was a member of their board for 10 years. So I knew, not only what they were, but the whole zeitgeist of the movement.
I remember the schools of choice movement, at least back in 1980s. I was participating in in my particular town in California. We had a schools of choice committee for our school district, and I was the only student representative on that group. And we created a schools of choice program for our school district, ABC School District, where we made decisions like whether or not people would have access to buses in order to get to their other schools and so on and so forth. And it became this thing. It was pushed by the senior Bush. This
is not school. You did it within
within the public school system.
Yes, they were talking about school choice, where you didn't have to send your children to what they call.
Now I homeschool. So
the idea was the money followed the child and the parents could choose any school, private school, parochial school. And if you weren't, again,
school
very libertarian, very get the government out of my life kind of attitude. So there's the two different groups that were those intellectuals who can be appealed to in my opinion, on the concept of freedom. If you can persuade them that you're not free if you don't have control, if you don't have economic security, or some level below which you can't fall, then they begin to listen, because freedom to them is the most important thing.
And as it should be for most humans. I really believe that is very important.
In some societies, freedom is not a thing. China, for example. China is a completely communitarian society. And ancestor worship, a whole Confucius
That's the
law.
culture I come from.
Yeah, well, so I'm not telling you anything, and you don't know. But this individualistic culture that we have is an aberration. Some Europeans, it's not, we're not the only ones, but we certainly take it to the nth degree. It turns out, if you've read Humankind,
do you personally feel that freedom is important to you also? Or are you of more of a collective, mindset?
Okay, so I was a child in France when the Nazis invaded. I spent the war years in France. 18 members of my family were deported and murdered in concentration camps.
Jewish?
Yeah,
I'm Jewish. Yeah.
So for 5 years, I lived in a society. I was a child, but I aged. I was 100 years old when I was 6. I lived in a society where not only wasn't there any freedom, but there was such arbitrary rule that you didn't know. We had to wear the Jewish star. We didn't know whether on a fine Tuesday afternoon we'd all be picked up and sent somewhere. So for me, freedom, one of the arguments I had with my libertarian, with those organizations that I would say your message is wrong, because some huge percentage of Americans, when you talk about freedom and liberty, they don't understand what you're saying. They can literally swing from the chandeliers if they want to at this point in time. Stop the first 10 people in the streets in San Francisco and ask them this question. They say, what are you talking about? What do you mean? Of course, nobody stops me from doing anything I want, except I can't speed, or I get a ticket, or I have to wear a helmet when I'm driving. It's not a thing. When you live in a society like ours, that's not a thing.
Right.
Freedom
I think it's interesting when you actually look at things like policing. It's random. It's arbitrary for the most part, except for the part where they're profiling who they're going to go pull over. They're hoping to catch somebody in a big crime. It's really not about investigation. It's like this little kind of arbitrary, random casino game. And gosh, your odds are even worse the darker your skin gets and the lower your income is and the older your car is, right?
Like that.
Yeah, but the thing is that the vast majority of the people in this country, the vast majority, never have any dealings with the police.
Yeah, that's true for me.
Except maybe a speeding tickets, and sometimes not even that.
Yeah.
I wanted to.
My parents. Oh, go ahead, Izzy.
Just real quick. This just 2 points I wanted to make. Just going off of what Giselle was mentioning about freedom. Is like that's most certainly important, and and in a way, in this country especially, we're not really free. It's just like that's maybe on paper, but as far as governing is concerned, and or just like our society where it's like we're slaves to a certain extent, more so slaves to the system. And
the
for
thing
instance,
is,
wait, hold on. I had
go ahead.
I wasn't finished, but I had a very good point. So for instance, the taxes, we should know where our taxes are going, even though people reaffirm that it's going to here and here, but that's not always the case, because it's also going to the richest folks and stuff, and those of Wall Street and big banks and stuff, and that shouldn't be the case. That's when people get upset when they gotta spend more taxes. So we should give them, we should constantly tell them yeah, this is where your taxes are going, and if you pay this tax, this is where it's going, and we gotta be truthful about that, and also what I'm noticing why we're having all these issues is because we're rewarding liars, manipulators, and those are the corrupt, and from all walks of life, from the top to the bottom. And we should be, like, I believe, Kaizen was mentioning, we should be holding them accountable, no exceptions. And we can't just get cold feet when they're like, oh well, but I donated to your campaign, or I did this, and that's like, I don't care. What you did was wrong, and you will suffer the consequences. End of story. Um, the second is this, with like UBI basic income. I'm sure, I guess I kind of speak for everyone, but I'm sure that the idea of UBI or basic income didn't come to people's heads, instantly. Hell, not even for Andrew Yang, like at some point. But then he was approached by, experts like yourself, Giselle, like Scott Sands and various others who know what they're talking about when it comes to UBI. And then when Andrew Yang heard it, he did his research. And I mean, he's a businessman, he's an economist. So he did his research, and based off of the data, it looks like, hey, this stuff works. And the point is not to just, give people money, it's to find a way to solve these issues. If there's a better idea than UBI, yeah, let's hear it. If it works, great. But right now, it's like money, this whole society economy is run by the almighty dollar. And if you need to get, and if you in order to get more opportunities or to get certain things done, or if you want to, escape an environment or do A, B, and C, you need money. So giving people money is the most rational decision. That's the whole point, rather than say, oh, let's give people money and that's going to like stop them from working. No. So it's so
I
yeah,
find
like
it,
that's
yeah. I find it
yeah.
interesting that Giselle came to the same conclusion that Andrew did, is that freedom is a word that is used in marketing to the American people. That
Yeah, it
if you're
is.
corrupt, then you use it. You say freedom is going to war with some other country. That's going to protect your freedom. But when in fact, when Andrew Yang decided to put together his UBI program, he decided that marketing said we need to call it the freedom dividend. Right? Of all of the different types of messaging that we could go with, people having stability, people having, caring about one another. There's so many different ways we could go in that,
What
that UBI
freedom really
alleviates.
is
But freedom is the one thing that Americans really respond to,
is
whether
the
it's
power.
right or wrong.
The freedom is the power to say no, right? It's like, you can't force me to do something I hate because you're depriving me of resources. Look, let me tell you something. You go out in a boat in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, right? And you have tons of money on that boat, but the boat runs out of gas. You have so much freedom on that boat. You have all the freedom. You can do whatever you want, but you're going to die because you're going to
Great
starve,
analogy.
and you're not going to have any food, and you're not going to have any water, and you're not going to have any air. You're going to have tons of freedom, but you're not going to have any resources. So
Yeah,
there has
the boat isn't
an
moving.
way, that people understand this. And you can't be forced to do something. And now if somebody comes to pick you up on that boat where you stranded in the middle of the sea, and they say, hey, like, we'll save you, we'll get you out of here, but first I'm going to have sex with you, and you're going to have to try all of my drugs, and you're going to have to do this, and you're going to have to do that. It's like, you see, they're withholding those resources from you until, you're made to do what they want. If that boat saves you, wants to force you to do a whole bunch of things before they get you back to land, where you can, go back to wherever you came from. Just an interesting.
They're like holding your freedom hostage, pretty much, and they're like, I will help you out only if you do this. They'll make it conditional, or like use it as like leverage. And even if you have the freedom to say no, they'll be like, well, you have no one else to turn to. You have no leverage yourself. There's nowhere else you can go, or whatever. So it's like, yeah, I'm the only shot you got. And it's like, they're not wrong, because there aren't many other alternatives, and the alternatives cost money. So, and that should never be the case. So
right.
Yeah.
Well, and as a person with disabilities, like, I can really talk to the idea that even just a little bit more money gives me a whole lot more choices in terms of how I manage my own health conditions. Like, Regular medicine doesn't work for me. And I sent Faye the other day a message I'd sent to a friend, like, 7 years ago? And I was in the process of maybe losing my kids forever and in the middle of a nasty, nasty divorce and all sorts of horrible things. And I was employed, but I was still impoverished. I still couldn't get a place to live because, rents are astronomical and I was in the middle of divorce and I didn't have financial documents, people didn't want to rent to me. It was so hard. And my, a person that I dated, a former lover of mine, was telling me, go to the hospital, go to the hospital. I've been to the hospital so many times. It's not the answer. It's not. So I think what I heard Giselle saying, though, is kind of what I've said before here, that instead of having organic, healthy, natural, sustainable communities where people are connected with each other and you know who your neighbors are and you all work together and you do the yard work together, and the city doesn't need to have big crews with big noisy machines because the citizens have operated a system where you can go borrow it, right?
Kai,
right?
Here's the other thing. Here's the other thing. Things like hospitals and organizations, they should be the answers, but they're not, because like the system and like how people are working in there, it's piss poor, it's satisfactory. It doesn't really help us. So it's especially that's why like some people get upset when people tell them like, oh, go admit yourself to a hospital, go get a job, go call this hotline, do A, B, and C, because because then it seems like they're blowing off rather than helping them. But there are other coaches who say that at the as a last resort. And they're not saying this to blow you up. They're just saying that because the organizations actually do help you, and they do. So, and when you give them a try, they don't waste your time. They don't give you the runaround. But how it is now in this society, in these systems, these organizations, they just waste your time, and then they tell you what you already know. So it's like, and that should never be the case. And then even like a freaking hospital can feel like a whole other traumatic experience when it shouldn't be.
Well, but that's exactly what it ends up being, and that's what drives the profit machine. Is like, if you can continue to re-traumatize people every time that something bad happens, they're never going to break out of that system, because it's kind of like an addiction. But it's not even that. It's the Ouroboros. It's the snake that eats itself.
But
right?
It's the why question, right? What is the purpose of fill in the blank? What is the purpose of healthcare? It should be to keep us well, not to treat us when we're sick. And run 2 million tests that cost $2 million each. Right? What is the purpose of education? It's to make us into human beings that can live together and perpetuate the species in an orderly manner. What is education now? A punitive system that doesn't allow the people within it to do their work. Okay? All of those. What is the purpose of government? The purpose of government is to ensure that the hedges are there so people work with each other with rules that make it more enjoyable, more productive,
equitable.
But the purpose of government is the happiness of the people.
Yes, and now everything has.
So that is the purpose of. But none of these things I just named are doing what they're the purpose of, because their purpose is different.
It's the runaway capitalism creating industries out of all of the human needs rather than serving us.
And instead of being like actual like education and healthcare, it's like quote unquote education and healthcare. It's like that's pretty much what it is. Like it says that on paper, but it's not really what it said it was going to do. Or
right. These institutions make it about themselves, not about the people that they're serving. It's all about their ego, their pride, what they're doing. But it's like, come look at, like, I'm sorry, but look at Trump. It's all about like me. Look at this, look at that. But like, what about all the people? This is a servant job. You're a servant. You're not a dictator. And it's not only Trump. It's all these institutions that have become like to self-perpetuate themselves and make profit instead of to serve. That's it.
So it happens in the nonprofit world where I was for 22 years. organizations start out with a cause and a purpose, and then the death of everything is bureaucratization. Once a thing becomes a thing unto itself, instead of the thing that was meant to fulfill a why, that's it. That's it. Then you've lost.
It's over.
You've lost the purpose of it, and it becomes a thing unto itself. Perpetual.
The Frankenstein's monster.
I'm going to interrupt for a second. We have one of our regular members of the crew joining us. We have Refluencts. We have Giselle in the round table with us today. Are you familiar with her work? Are you all caught up? Have you been able to listen to us while you've been working?
Yes, I watched the VODs, the video playback, so I'm trying to keep up at least.
Oh yeah, I watched some of her videos too. Yeah, I thought she looked familiar. Yeah.
So I wanted to actually bring it to talk about how Larry and Giselle, you've both been working a very long time in the advocate space, in the advocacy space for UBI. And I'm wondering if you feel that something is changing right now, or if it's always been this way, because we don't have that historical perspective. Some of us, we're getting into it just with Andrew Yang. But prior to this, I noticed right now that this push that you're making is in conjunction with the income movement. Is that correct?
Yes. They're like my operational arm. I'm sitting here in my little office in downtown San Francisco. There's nothing I can
awesome.
do. She and her Stacey Rutland and all of the people who work with her, many of whom are volunteers. I fund them to the capacity within my budget. But we work together regularly. We have a weekly phone call, and we have other calls with other people that we also have on a weekly basis. So they're like my operational arm, the income movement.
So that's wonderful. So income movement together with income movement, and also I guess Yang Gang and Humanity First movement is partnered up with income movement. And so I feel like there's this sort of confluence and everybody's joining together. I see that Martin Luther King III is now going to be part of the mayoral run, is going to be helping Andrew run for mayor in New York City.
Nice.
To bring on the biggest UBI pilot, I guess. We don't need another one, but another UBI in New York City. So are we going to be partnering up with the Poor People's Campaign as well?
So Stacey is one of our missions, and she's partaking in it on a regular basis, is to bring together all of the the Poor People's Campaign, the Justice Collaborative. There's a whole bunch of people who are working on other things, but also like UBI, right? They have more than one cause, and they have a weekly call, all those people. It's called the War Room, and then they all get together and discuss, and they did plan the whole this weekend. There were a number of events. On Thursday we launched the video, and then there were a series of events. Other than that,
may we ask for an invite to the War Room for one or more of us to attend?
I mentioned it to Stacey. What I have is your email, Ariel.
You have mine, yeah. So definitely.
Do I have yours too? Your email?
I think you only have mine. I don't know about everybody else, but you have mine.
Where do we
so I can give you there.
I think Ariel can you can be the main contact, and Ariel can share with us.
Conduit.
The liaison. Thank you very much.
Can be the liaison.
So just give it to Ariel.
Well, Ariel will give to us. Ariel will pass through.
I'll be the liaison, as in whatever you want to tell Giselle, tell me, and then I'll tell her. And if Giselle, you want to tell anything to all of them, you can go through me.
Okay, perfect. What I do want to say, and I'm a very candid person, as I said before. There's not nearly the amount of collaboration that there could be among the groups that supported Andrew, the Yang Gang universe, and the the organizations that Andrew established afterwards, or that it's not entirely. I mean, we're losing power because there's a lack of coordination. I mean, it's
and cohesion.
100%.
We see that too.
I 100%
We see that
agree.
too.
That's why, like, I 100% agree with you, Giselle, when you said that, because like that's why I'm trying so hard to like bring that sort of collaboration, but I'm also like putting my foot down at times when that collaboration is only like selective, or oh, we'll choose this person because we like them instead of you, or all this other stuff. When in actuality, we should be like doing what we can to solve these issues and save lives or whatever to prevent more catastrophes from happening, like what happened in freaking DC. Let's that's to like prevent the future from being more brutal or whatever. But it's like I mean that's why like I'm a big time critic, and that's what I try to push for, because this is important, and we need to be a cohesive unit. Forget all like all like Giselle said, all the people that back Yang and the big names and organizations or whatever. What it comes down to is like how much can we get done, and like are we able to go against these oligarchs and the top 1% or whatever. Are we just going to collapse within ourselves, or can we get this done? And I mean that's the goal here, because
Right.
we can't do it just because
we cannot turn this into a popularity contest. We all need to be working together. This is not a popularity contest. These are like people's lives. These are policies. This is like for the future. And
lives are at stake. Yeah.
Like I'm not going to name names, but there are some people trying to turn this into a popularity contest, into a cool kids club, and all that stuff. And I am 100% against that. This is not a reality TV show, not a popularity contest. This is policy.
Let's hear let's hear how Giselle would like to ask us to work together better. Is there some way that we can participate in a more cohesive manner?
Well, I think that it's something that's probably not possible, because it doesn't happen in bureaucracies, and in everybody is very protective of their brand and their but imagine, I mean, for instance, I'll just give you for instance, through the campaign, Andrew's organization accumulated hundreds of thousands of email addresses and people who reached out. If I were them and the video came out, I would send that video to all those hundreds. It doesn't cost me anything. I'm not giving the names and addresses of my supporters or anybody in my thing to somebody else for control. It takes what? It takes 2 minutes to send an email with, oh, look at this video that talks about UBI. And I don't understand why that doesn't happen. This is the problem. Okay, when I
2 minutes, maybe less.
I think it's worthwhile. Not only do I send it out, I don't have that many followers. I'm not an influencer or anything, but also I try to figure out, is there somebody I know who could help this person, who could work with this person and amplify what this person is saying?
That's what our Faye does. The other Faye here.
No, well, that's literally what I've been saying this entire time. Literally, what Giselle is mentioning, like, hey, because like every second counts, and it only takes a couple minutes of your time to do the right thing to help somebody.
It's not rocket science.
It's not. It's not a new freaking idea, and like because Giselle said it, it's like oh. It's not like awakening a moment. Like I've been saying that people are like, "F you."
Giselle's.
It's like
I think when Giselle says it, she says it with a certain level of gravitas, but also because she's been working, through with so many different organizations. I think it's a very valid criticism, and one that we've made before. That when Andrew's campaign ended, we didn't actually have a very good, we didn't have a coming together where the grassroots could finally actually speak to the campaign itself, because there was this thing was happening during the Democratic what do you call it, primaries, where the grassroots people who were working through super PACs weren't able to communicate with the campaign itself directly because there was so much pushback against the super PAC. Somehow super PACs were considered unethical in some way, and we were undesirable. But when we're like, no, they fundraise for the grassroots. This is what we need. We need more money to get the stuff done. So
here's the other thing. Here's the other thing that I find just very unnerving, and that is like.
Hold on, I just wanted to let me just finish the thought, which is that unfortunately we didn't have that post-mortem where we come together and speak about what our experience was and really communicate that to the campaign. And so some of the same problems that plague the presidential campaign, I think, is going to continue going forward now that he's jumped into another race, and we're going to be back in the same sort of well, there's the campaign and then there's the grassroots, and everybody's just kind of unable to mesh together. I hope that can be solved.
Some of the messaging. I think we need to change some of it.
I think that some of the rules won't apply now because it's instead of a federal campaign, this is a city campaign. So hopefully, this can still be ameliorated. And so we're going to have Dr. Quintus Jett on next week, I think. And he also ran a super PAC for, in support of Andrew. And we're going to be talking more about that idea of freedom when he gets on here, because I think that's really important. Thanks, Izzy, for waiting.
I do want to say that and that's this what I find very unnerving, and that is going like what Faye was saying, like, oh, because Giselle said in like a what was gracious gravure or nicer way,
gravitas,
when
gravitas.
That should never be that should never be the case. I mean, we shouldn't be about feelings. That's one of the biggest problems. Like, we're about like, oh, you got to say things nicer, or you got to use your words in a more insightful or poetic way. Otherwise it's just a rant or whatever. When it's like you should be listening to that person no matter what. It's like forget your feelings. People are dying. Okay, it's like our economy our society is crumbling. People are polarized and all.
Self-cannibalizing.
Like who cares how a person address these issues or whatever, whether they say it in a mean way or if they're more angelic about it. The point behind is you listen, you take notes, you take action, and you get the stuff done. Forget about you can't talk to me that way because I'm in a certain mood. No, okay, it's like, I mean,
we personally have to be proof of concept of all the things that we're talking about. We can talk all day, but unless you're actually doing it and sharing what you're doing, people won't believe you. They'll just like, oh, well, that sounds all great, but are you actually doing anything?
I think like Izzy's saying that there's sort of there's too much emphasis on how something is said or who is saying it, rather than what is being said and how it's affecting average people everywhere, the normal people, as the war on normal people.
You can say that if you overlook human nature. I mean, when I was running for Congress and I went to candidate school, they said to me, you have 7 seconds to hook them with something that they listen to. And I'm afraid that's true of all human conversations.
That's crazy.
If you could, true, there are, there's sometimes a pony under all of that, but normally people don't want to put up with all of that, right?
Giselle, how do you go to candidate school? Because Kai Zen here is thinking about running for office soon. And we have another member who is coming on in a couple of weeks to tell us about how he's going to run for president, not president, for
Congress.
1998, the Republican Party, which is what I was running, and I had, the Bay Area, there was a candidate school that I went to, and they gave tips, and they gave them, I think it was a day-long kind of seminar thing, and that was what they did. I mean, that was in 98. I'm sure that there were. And if the Democrats don't have that, they better. I mean, I can't believe
Yeah.
Not in Texas.
It's funny.
We don't have any money in Texas. So the Democratic Party in Texas is very poor because we are not the majority. And so the number of people you are able to get in your group determines how much money you're going to be able to raise. And it's very, to me, it's like there's so little support, and then it just continues being less and less support if you stay in that group. That, it's almost like in order to, improve your circumstance politically, now you have to, jump ship.
I mean, think about the culture that we live in. Everything is a soundbite. Everything, like a commercial that you see, and then when you read the like prescription drugs, it's like fast, and then all the side effects. This may cause this. Okay, we're done. It's like, yeah. So the culture is like this culture of hyper, kind of like attention distraction, something like
Very
that. Go ahead.
And like, yeah.
Well, I mean, escape is an important coping mechanism if you're trying to heal from trauma, and if we're constantly being bombarded with traumatic images and
that's not escapism.
and in our lives, and have systems like continuously oppress us. It's like it's a distraction, but it's not a healthy one. It's not
that's
the same
escapism
as, like,
on steroids.
Right. I mean, it's just, steroids are useful for a while, but they can also really wreck your body. So it's always about finding that level of balance and in Quaker language, discernment of what the right thing, and you have to have time and space and quiet in order to figure things out. And that is things that this culture doesn't have right now. Everything that we have is a toxic replacement for the thing that it should be naturally.
It's about
and so we're building
entertainment,
Exactly. So like we're building institutions to replace what would happen naturally if we all had that same foundation. And I've thought a lot about the game Monopoly, right? And how is that game different than what we do right now? And the biggest difference is when you pass through, you get $200.
You get 200, exactly. Nobody starts with 0 in Monopoly. Why would they do it in real life?
I think
the game is called Monopoly.
And
in real life, of course, when
honestly,
wait, Refluencts wants to say something.
Every single conservative out there, my pitch is, you want to play Monopoly? Okay, let's do it. But you have to have that floor in order to play. And you guys know it, and you've stolen it from us, the people, since this nation was founded, basically. But what we had then that we don't have now is free land.
Right.
Yeah.
That work with conservatives. You're appealing to their heart, and that's not possible. I mean, if they had everything, we wouldn't be where we are. I mean, we would never have gotten to where we are. It's the quality of life question, right? I mean, what kind of life will you have if you have to live in a gated community and go everywhere in a tank? Because the pitchforks are waiting.
There's so many people who have nothing. We've created dangers to ourselves. Yes.
Giselle, I have a little gift that I use all the time, and it's this lady she looks like a Quaker with this big pitchfork. Just yes. Because who doesn't feel that way? I do, as a woman, for sure. I'm just like, I'm tired of being told what to do by every man I encounter. No offense to the room, but I'm tired of it. I have my own plans, thanks. I don't need you to tell me, but I need you to help me with the heavy lifting. And that's just because my biology is different, but I get to carry the babies. So can we make a deal here? And I know every person in this podcast works that way. And so do most of the people in the room, except for not when I'm having a conversation with my manager, when I've worked for a firm for 12 years and I'm making $12 an hour and I have a master's degree, right? And I've served as an assistant manager and a manager for this company for the time that I've worked for them, and they're hiring in brand new trainees at $12 an hour. And I want a raise, sir. I've earned it. I'm one of the people that knows what to do. I train these people. And his answer was, well, but we start people at way above minimum wage. We pay way above minimum wage. That is an incorrect answer, sir. And I tender my resignation now. Take me off your payroll. And that's when I became who I am right now. Basically, I had to let it go.
You finally took a stand. So, Refluencts, you had something you wanted to add here. Do you still remember?
Right. Back to the point where our culture, on the topic of culture, the playing field, or the game of Monopoly, as we like to call it, it gets very different these times around, because when the way I see it, people can, and a lot of them, most of them, they become very numb to the information that's being fed to them. So, like what Izzy was saying, or some people were saying, like, some people get affected by these, like Capitol Hill, like, oh, these bad things are happening, and then the next day you're like, oh, I'm just still doing my job. Like, I didn't really. I mean, it's hard. People talk about it, but on the same point again, we're not also doing. I mean, like for me, I wish I could do something about it, but in my power to do so, I don't, because I have like a full-time job. I'm trying to make ends meet. I live with my mom. I'm trying to get to college. Like, a lot of young people want to try save the world like their own hero. Like, that's some kind of heroism.
Yeah.
But yeah. But a lot of us in this room, and a lot of us listening and watching, there needs to be some sort of action need to be done to I mean Biden's elected, right? He's elected. Trump's not out yet, but he is soon, right? I'm asking a question. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I mean, if you're a proponent of UBI,
right,
and this is the cause that you're espousing, then, income movement has a task that you can do every day of the week that takes you 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever.
Right.
So it's not that the opportunities aren't there. It's just that young people, just as part of the natural thing, want things to happen right away. Nothing happens right away.
Right.
Nothing happens right away. It took 70 years for women to get the vote. It took 50 years for gay people to be able to get married. It takes an enormous amount of time to get change in a huge society like ours. And it's drip, drip, drip. It's the Chinese water torture. You've got to just keep at it. And it's not as if, I understand, people, I'm not in that circumstance. I have the freedom of doing whatever I want. I don't have to worry about my next paycheck. But there is time, if everybody who cares about UBI just spent 5 minutes every day to check what Stacy has planned, a letter to your congressman, a petition signing, a participation in a podcast. You can do these things as little as 3 minutes and as much as an hour, and you can be part of something. And, you do have weekends. Obviously, it depends on the amount of passion you have for the thing, and you do have a real life. No question. I remember having a conversation with my son way back when Social Security looked like it was really going to go bye-bye, and he was 37 at the time. I said, Gerald, you're a very involved person. You care about these things. You're not going to ever get Social Security. Why aren't you doing something about that? And he said, Mom, I've got a life. That's and honest. People have a life, and it's very. But I'm telling you, Americans had better wake up to the fact that they have to do this, regardless of what life they have, because they're not going to have a life anymore, or any kind of life that's like what we have now, which is horrific as it is. Because, you know, this epidemic isn't the last one. This economic crisis isn't the last one. You have children, watch them, you see what...
And in California, the fires are never the last.
The fires, there's floods, the hurricanes, I mean, all of that. It's not, you know, this is a species-threatening period. And if you don't do something as an individual that's part of the species, like bees do, or chimpanzees do, or all the other animals on this planet, we're going to be eliminated, and we may take the planet with us.
Well,
I actually wanted to...
But I'm looking at my grandchildren.
Yes.
My grandchildren will be alive at the end of this century. You understand
Giselle, I actually wanted to ask you a little bit about the current events and how you're feeling about the certain events that are happening now. Let's talk about that $2,000 cash stimulus. Do you feel that that is a good precursor to the UBI that we're, you know, right now we're talking about increasing the check from 600 to 2,000, and then we're talking about maybe making it recurrent one day, or maybe making it even retroactive? Or do you think that any of these possibilities could be coming for us?
I think that it opens the door. I mean, I'm probably a little more optimistic than pessimistic. I'm maybe 52% to 48%, only because of the, you know, the machinations of the political system. I mean, when they have to vote on this, they have to understand that it means something, because if it doesn't mean anything, they're not going to agree to it. I mean, it means something to them personally. It has an effect on their career, you know, on what's going to happen to them. I think that I'm just, you know, when I read on Twitter these arguments, they said $2,000 and now it's only $1,400 because it drives me bananas. My hair's on fire. I mean, plan this stuff. I cannot abide it. The amount of energy and, well, anyway, Twitter is not the place to think about this. But
yes, it's not.
The fund, I just applied for an H option, which enables me to participate in lobbying as a 501c3. You know, 20% of my budget to go to lobbying. So I've hired a consultant who's working with the Economic Security Project and with the Humanity Forward consultants in Washington to make this happen. And we are very encouraged because we think that once you start, we're trying to see whether it can be made recurring. If there's a way to make it recurring, even for 3 months, right? Because it's madness. If people get $2,000 now, what's going to happen at the end of February? I mean, time marches on. Money isn't coming in. The rent is still due. I mean, it's not. So we're thinking that if we could if we can make it recurring in whatever, not to an amount, you know, not getting married to a particular amount, but make it recurring for the duration, even to the summer, even to the point where everybody's vaccinated, because economically, or calibrated to the economy, right? Calibrated to the economy, where the trigger is if we go below 5% unemployment or whatever, which is not true, you understand. The GDP and the unemployment rates are fictions. They're not real things. But nevertheless, that's what we use. So we're not going to get to 5% unemployment anytime soon, let me tell you that. But we feel that this is a very good moment, that the fact that that they're willing to entertain another check, you know, after the one that they sent before. We're pushing to make it recurring. Now, those are the words we're using: recurring, 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 because the administration is going to be facing this at the end of February again, at the end of March again.
And the Senate may be busy talking about the impeachment again, and because the impeachment is done from the House and it's being sent to the Senate, but they're not going to discuss it until Biden comes online. And so it may be holding up some of these discussions. Yeah.
Yeah, I just saw on CNN we have 400,000 coronavirus deaths. They said it's predicted in February to go up to 550,000 deaths in the prediction. So we're talking about 150,000 additional deaths. We don't think that that's going to have some kind of effect on our overall economy. So just like you said, in February, we're seeing this thing spike up like crazy, and they're just talking about, oh, we'll just do this thing one time. Do you take a shower only once? Do you change your clothes only once? Do you brush your teeth only once? Get it together.
So I know that the UBI, for example, would have been a better inoculation than even the vaccine for all of this that has happened. We could have for sure prevented people from getting together and going to work and searching for more work in a time when everybody should be staying home. I mean, if you're going to leave it up to people to stay home, then at least give them something with which to stay home. They don't have the freedom to do that even. But let's talk about also, what do you believe that there might be some violence coming up? Because I also believe the UBI would be an inoculation for the violence that seems to be constantly looming over us, having seen what happened at the Capitol. Do you feel that there might be more violent acts that in our country for 2021?
It's inevitable.
I do. I think that there will be more violence. I don't think that UBI can stop that.
No,
I think that the violence is inherent. There's been a lot of saying, you see all these people saying, this is not what we are. This is precisely what we are. This isn't just happening now. It's happened a million times before. That cultural, thing has been around forever. I mean, since the beginning of this country. And it's, I think that, with the social media and the dark channels and all of that, it's more and more dangerous because people can be put together. My opinion is every single one of those people they arrested in the Capitol that they're identifying and arresting should get 10 years in jail. That's it. It's sedition. I mean, they vandalized a federal building. Trump has an executive order in effect that says you get 10 years maximum if you face from what was happening in the summer. So we've got an executive order in place that can remain if Biden they remove it, right? It's the law of the land, the executive order. I would throw 300, 500 people in jail for 10 years. That's the only stuff that will discourage them.
They were hoisted by their own petards.
So, that's never going to happen. What they're doing is most of the things that I see that they're holding them responsible for is, a year in jail, maybe 3 months in a local jail. It's a tap on the wrist. No, these people, because a lot of them are middle class people.
I really wanted to make this point since we are on the subject. Yeah, I mean, this could have been prevented ahead of time. See, this is why, like, I just get so upset when I see people, just abandoning various others for reason X or whatever, and it's a petty reason usually. When in actuality, like, if you help them, it can change the course of history. It can stop like these sorts of occurrences from happening. But it's like they don't see that. They just look at the short term and go, you hurt my feelings or whatever.
Izzy, though, these were like middle class, sometimes rich people. So I don't know if that works for them. They weren't really like people on the margins of society. It just shows you their sense of entitlement. Right. But you're right about help people before they go mad. But the thing is that one of them flew a private jet down to the Capitol to be part of that. So these are not like people that I have any sympathy for. And I mean, Giselle, you as a Holocaust survivor, 6MNE Camp Auschwitz, what the hell is that? You know, 10 years.
But let's not. But here's the thing. Here's the thing, though. I mean, because there are, you get those who like, who just they think they can just wreak havoc and do whatever they want. But you also have those who just been, they've just been so messed up that they're gonna join this radical group or whatever. I mean, these cults and gangs and terrorist organizations, they recruit those who are vulnerable, those who've been abandoned by society or even by groups who thought they were supporting them or whatever. And it's like, the cult's like, don't worry, I'll take care. The gang's like, don't worry, I'll take care of you. You just got to do this or whatever. When if we
that's true.
Well, I mean, like if we treat them like family, like they belong at the beginning, they wouldn't have turned into this. Now, that's not to excuse their behavior. Like if you do this, like there's going to be consequences, But also, like if you just shut the door on somebody, that too has consequences. You can't just say, oh, if I just let this person just like if I let them like rot away somewhere, they're just going to die in a ditch. They're not going to become this bad person, whatever. When it's like that's not always the case. It will hurt you in the long run. So it's like we got to be careful, who we take advantage of, who we turn our backs on, whatever, because you never know what they could become. You never know. So it's like, I mean, so it's not like you're not only saving. So it's not about like just saving a life, but multiple lives. And it's like, they can, forget like just being some mass shooter or whatever. They could join a cult, or they could become a police officer, a doctor, a politician, a parent. They could become any of those things. They could like just keep on, spreading the poison or whatever. And the goal is to stop the poison from spreading, and all it takes is to, do the smallest things like, telling someone like, hey, hey, let's go get something to eat. Let's go hang out. It's like, you're all right with me. And also just talk to them like a regular human being, and not like walk right past them or talk to them and like they're like you're trying to play the therapist or whatever. And when you get mad because they didn't take your suggestion, yes, because your suggestion is crap. And also like when I hear people say, oh, we support people, we support, we support women, we support people of color or whatever, and yet there are people who are in those groups who are being, tossed aside or whatever in real time. And I'm sitting there going like, I thought you said you were for, like they represent this group. And it's like it just seems, hypocritical, whatever. And as here's the other thing. In Canada, the French, this conservative culture or whatever, like they don't just say that they support, person X or person Y. They show it by their actions. They don't say they support women's rights. They show it. They don't say they support, Black lives. They show it. They don't say they support those who learn disabilities or autism, treat them fairly, whatever. They show it. So it's like, they let their actions do the talking. Those are people I respect, and those who just, say the right things, but don't really follow through. And, they like, yeah.
I have a phrase that's very complimentary to what you're saying, and it's when we lie to the world, we may lie to ourselves, but then we will lie to the world. But our actions don't lie, and those don't go unseen, right?
Yeah, exactly.
One of the things, I mean, I don't entirely agree with you. I do think that you have to be nice to people, all of that, and you can't automatically, write them off. That you have to listen to them, and you have to make a judgment about who they are, whether you want to continue to associate with them. Part of that is their responsibility. I don't just, like everybody, I discriminate.
Yeah, you know the line. Yeah, it's like.
But there's a fantastic, I don't know if you've seen it on Twitter, there's a fantastic TikTok 1 minute thing, a young man who addresses patriarchy. He said, you say you love America, but you hate that. And he goes on for 1.5 minutes of all the things that these people hate and say they hate.
Right.
So at the end he says, so how do you love America? I mean, he names all the things that America is. You hate the government, you hate you hate, I mean, and this is what these people are. They are in an existential threat to them. They feel that their country is being taken away from them.
Well, they're not even a threat. It's like they're treated like a threat. You know, it's like that's the whole thing, rather than like, oh, let's not like everybody. It's like
how they feel. It's not true, obviously. I mean, it's just like the Latinos, who are Trump supporters because they came from Cuba and Venezuela. You just say the word socialism and boom, that's it. And all you have to do is point to what happened last week, and that's fascism, and that's what's coming for them. Okay, so socialism is a non-word, and fascism is happening right now in their country.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So
You bring
many
that up,
definitions
Giselle.
of social
It's my parents from Iran. Like you heard of the revolution, like when Khomeini came and he took over. So my mother is still a Trump supporter because he's like pro-Israel and he's against socialism. But then I put my hand over, no, Mom, like look further than that. You can't just be like a one issue, one thing, and that's it. You have to expand. There's a whole frame here, and you're just zooming in on one piece, and you just have the blinders on. That's what I try to tell her.
And then you have the conversation stoppers. I mean, when I was in education, I remember I went to a conference, and I was a school choice conference where they trotted out a couple of black people. I mean, this was in the early 2000s, who were part of the conference, so that they gave some meaning to it, because it's mostly aimed at African American kids who were in places where the education was so horrible. And I was having this conversation with this father. And I was saying, but what about the quality of the education? I mean, the choice is one thing, don't you want your child to be well educated? I mean, if you choose a school, don't you want to make sure that the school is producing a good education? And
quality over quantity.
Wait, let me finish. He said to me, I'm just concerned that he comes home alive. And that's the end of the conversation. Okay? That's the end of the conversation. You can't talk about the quality of education when the father is worried that if his child goes to a non-school, a school
that's
not
sad.
like that, he's not going to come home.
And that's where I live in Kansas City.
And I had a conversation when I was running for Congress. I was supported by Republicans. There were a number of pro-life people, and I was somebody was driving me somewhere, and we were having this conversation. He was trying to convince me, and I kept saying it's freedom. A woman has the freedom to choose what she does with her own body, And at the end, he said, "Well, you don't understand." He said, "I wake up every morning and I think I live in a country where babies are being murdered." That's the end of the conversation. I mean, I'm saying that people, and you could do the same thing with me. You can argue with me about poor life, and there'll be an end to that conversation. Because I say something that is not, you can't argue against. I mean, you can't convince people about the other side. There's a line. So the thing that you have to do is to find something that people agree with you on, and leave everything else aside. Try to concentrate on the thing that you can agree on. And I think you'll be honest.
Poverty sucks.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I think the universal basic income, we need to lean harder on the word, because universal means all of us. And that means having to really work on these divisions that are dividing us. So we are reaching the end of our scheduled time together. And I really appreciate both Larry and Giselle for coming today, and Refluencts for joining us, all the regular speakers. Thank you very much. And of course, I never want to leave out our listeners and our viewers. Really appreciate you for joining us today. I hope that we can maybe all of us can do one thing, which is write to Andrew and ask him to send out that beautiful video that Giselle put together with her organization to his email followers. I believe that Andrew could hear us if we have enough people asking. So thank you very much for coming to our show. And can you tell us a little bit about where you would like other people to find you, or maybe make a donation, or, show up and put their energy forward? How can they connect with you on social media, Giselle?
So it's a Gerald Huff Fund for Humanity, or at Fund for Humanity on Twitter. It's the only place where I'm active. The Gerald Huff Fund for humanity.Org is the website, and all my tweets are posted there and various things. And if I get a copy of this, there'll be a copy of this posted there as well. I'm self-funding this. I mean, the crowdfunding is not something that works for this. This is friends and family kind of thing, and I have. So I can't do pilots. I can't do those kinds of things. But I am in my field. I was working for a foundation for 22 years, and we made investments in organizations that were working on education. And I was called the best ROI of any foundation person ever, which is, the fact that we had a small, compared to the Gates Foundation, with whom I was, when we were on the same page, we were not even a drop in the bucket. But I managed to make other people do what I wanted. So, I came up with an idea, and I got other people on board, and, I spent $550,000 over 3 years, and
Wow.
$80 million were invested afterwards in, simultaneously and afterwards in that, which was the charter school movement.
Very good.
So, and the blended learning movement, the introduction of technology.
Here in Kansas City, my children go to Citizens of the World Kansas City, which has 3 charter schools. They're public charter schools in Los Angeles, Kansas City, and Manhattan. So this is something that I share with Andrew Yang's community, and I do believe that you guys have helped with the Citizens of the World in some form. And so I'm so grateful to have that, because we've there's the monetization of schools, and then there's what Citizens of the World does, which is really focus on social emotional learning in addition to the academics, and is a living kind of, it's a community school. It's a neighborhood school. It's based in Valentine area in Kansas City, which is a historic area, and wonderful people and all sorts of arts, and it's beautiful. This is my home. And so it's fun to see how I'm personally connected to something that you helped build for my very impoverished city. For our listeners and anybody that doesn't know, the Kansas City, Missouri school district, public school district, is not accredited and hasn't been going on and off for decades. We get provisional accreditation. It's so bad. It's so bad. And Missouri really has had some problems really this last decade, and education is a big part of it. And the school to prison pipeline is very strong here in Missouri, and it's very sad to see. But, it's beautiful to see the grassroots pushback of people in their communities standing up and saying, oh, hell no, we're done with you deciding that because I'm standing on the street corner and I'm Black, that you get to arrest me and then go make me work for your system with no choice for the rest of my life. Like, what is that?
That's terrible. Kai,
That
do you
is
want to go
not
ahead and
freedom.
give your closing while you're speaking?
I will do an outro. Yes, I will, so I can focus on my my producer role. My name is Kaizen KC. That is at KAIZENKC. I hail from the Penn Valley Religious Society of Friends, Quaker Meeting House. So greetings to any friends that might be watching. I'm hoping we can start building some Quaker viewership. I think they will really enjoy all of these discussions. I encourage everybody to keep the eye on the future. We're just getting it started, but this is beautiful. So thank you, Giselle, for all your time. I can be found at Twitter, Patreon, and Cash App, PayPal. It's all the same. You'll find me.
Very good. How about Ariel? Thank you for inviting Giselle today.
Yes, that was wonderful, Ariel. Thank you for having me. I mean, this has been fun. I love it. I could do this all day.
Oh yeah, you're
can.
just like me. Me too.
You can.
It's the thing. The thing is
Well,
that
yeah,
like
please come back.
I have a
Please come back.
that's I have a passion for just speaking, public speaking, and riling people up and getting to the heart and the core of the issues. And whoever wants to do that with me, invitation. So I'll give out my outro. My name is Ariel Bakshende. You can find me on Twitter at Ariel's Ariels. So that's ARIELS AERIALS. I love everything that flies: planes, helicopters, drones. That's why I take these drone photos and I post them up on Twitter. And I also have a YouTube page, youtube.com/revolutionary thinking. You can come find me there. We'll have lots of fun. And thanks for listening, everyone.
All right. My name is Faye Ku. I'm here in Palestine, Texas. So my Twitter is at Palestine Math. Make America Think Harder. And looking forward to supporting Andrew in his mayoral run. But more importantly, we found the community that is of utmost importance to me, the UBI advocates. And so with that, I'd like to pass to Larry Cohen.
Yeah, I'm Larry Cohen. You can find me on Twitter at Larry Cohen, LARRYCOHEN, and my website, buildthefloor.org.
I stepped away for a bit. I'm Ishmael Z. Bowden, and I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, various other places. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram at Izzy Bowden, IZZY BOLDEN. Facebook, just search for like Ishmael or Ishmael Bowden or Izzy Bowden, ISMAIL. And I'm also on TikTok and Twitch at Izzy Reborn 92. That's at IZZY REBORN 92. I believe that's it. And I also I'm also on YouTube and I have podcasts. My YouTube page is Izzyland YT, IZZYLANDYT, and I'm actually working. And I'm serious. I actually am working on another video. So yeah, stay tuned for that. And it has nice visuals and all this other stuff. And my podcast is Izzyland Uncut, IZZYLAND Uncut, where there's we just get none but ugly truths for all emotions, barely any interruptions. Talk about various have various great discussions, and actually plan on doing an interview this coming Saturday. And yeah, I'm going to try to I'm trying to still work after this StreamYard and try to I'm going to try to stream it on YouTube or Twitch and stuff. Maybe bring Craig on. But yeah, it's if you're interested on becoming a guest yourself, definitely definitely contact me. Send me a direct message, at Izzy Bowden on Twitter. And yeah, we'll definitely set some up and we'll have a great discussion and stuff. Yeah, that's all I got to say for now. I'm pretty burned out.
Thank you, Ishmael. Let's go to Faye Duney.
Hello. My name is Faye. So my Twitch, Twitter, and TikTok is @Doney. But if you want to just cyberstalk me, my Linktree handle is also @Doney. So it's linktr.ee/@Doney, TISDONEY. I am trying to raise funds right now for a trip. Essentially, I'm going on tour across the United States, and I'm going to be collecting tools from my grandparents who used to build schools, churches, and houses for people in other countries. They're retiring, so from that work. So I'm going to collect all the tools and then trade and barter my way through the United States to get people what they actually need. And I got some stops: Washington, Oregon, California, Texas, and I'm currently in Alabama. So it's going to be fun. If you want to reach out and maybe meet me, I'm going to get my vaccine in Texas. So I can get you on my route. So anyway, so if you click the link tree, you can find ways to help me fund that if you so desire. Thank you.
All right. And Refluencts, do you want to have people connect with you by social media?
Yes, hello. My name is Refluence. You can pronounce it any other way, but it's Refluence. And I made a project. It's called Gaming for Humanity. And it's like it brings meditation and focus into gaming. That's the basic gist of it. But if you Google me on Refluence on anything like Instagram, Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, Gaming for Humanity, and Refluence, they're all the same thing. So thank you very much for having me here.
All right, thank you for joining us.
Oh yeah,
on
I'm
the
sorry.
show.
One more thing. Sorry.
Oh yes, go ahead.
I'm from Hawaii, 808 State. Yeah.
That's
Thank
awesome. Look how we're live streaming across so many different time zones. All right, Shael, go ahead.
All right, thank you so much, Giselle. I did not chime in too much. I wanted to let everybody else talk, but I really did enjoy this conversation, and I'm very, very grateful that you're able to come on. I just want to reiterate before you go, while we have you, the reason we don't use Zoom, the reason we use Discord instead, is because this is a permanent hub for UBI advocates to meet. And I'd like to invite you to come back anytime. You never have to announce yourself. If you would like to drop in on a show and just observe, you're welcome to, or if you just want to talk as much as you want to another guest that we have, you're also welcome to do that. So I post the schedule on the schedule channel every Thursday. If you'd like us to help you with trending a hashtag or doing something else for your organization, we'd also be happy to help you with that. So please come back and you can ask us for help with that in the live chat. We'll talk about that. The live chat, the live stream chat, which is the name of the channel. Anyway, so thank you. I will let you go. I've taken up a lot of your time. Thank you again. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for speaking, all of our speakers, and we will see you again next weekend at the Yang Gang Roundtable. Be good.